I'd like to thank the Hooding Committee for selecting me to address my class today. This is really a great honor. My only goal is that my comments this afternoon are less disappointing than my academic performance over the last 3 years. So long as I don't leave the stage crying, we're doing great. And I also just want to start, I was thinking all morning, how am I, in what disarming way can I look out at everyone so as not to be intimidated? And my grandma tells me as we're walking in, she says, "Oh, the Palace Theater. You know, your grandfather and I used to come here in high school." Pretty cool. Yeah, we used to sit up in the balcony and make out during the shows. I apologize in advance for ignoring the balcony. Today, for all of us, marks the conclusion of what, for I think probably most of us, has been the most challenging experience of our lives. We've graduated, but as I thought about the reality of what it means to graduate, I mean, obviously there's a lot of excitement, but I'm terrified. I now have to work for a living. As I've learned, apparently the federal government does not subsidize living in my parents' basement. At least not yet. So in light of all the excitement, we've got the lights, the gowns, the photographers. It's like a Whitney Larson photo shoot. In light of all that excitement, I kind of want to be a downer and think a little bit about our fears. Because really what we're confronting is a lot of unknown. And when I think about that and our fears of the unknown, I think back to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we didn't know what law school had in store. I knew I wouldn't be expected to do math. I was at least told there was a high probability I would eventually be paid well. Even my rudimentary arithmetic to compute that was a really great formula. But I think what really is on our collective mind more than anything is the next step, and we are confronting an unknown much like we did 3 years ago. And I remember thinking 3 years ago, these bookworms, I'm going to be going to law school. These people I'm going to meet, my classmates, what are those relationships going to be like? Will I get along with these people? Who is Aman Syed and what are all these Facebook messages? And I was afraid. And I was particularly anxious, considering that coming into law school, you hear all these stories about how competitive and how cutthroat your law school classmates will be. Certainly that is the perception of law students. And fortunately, in the class of 2011, that perception is simply not reality. The camaraderie among this group is honestly astounding. Whether natty-gating before Buckeye football games, go Bucks Marcello, I don't know where you are. Whether we were playing laser tag or simply crossing the street for lunch, we were always together, and on purpose. And while I'm undoubtedly lucky to leave Ohio State with a valuable degree from a highly respected academic institution, above anything else, I am spoiled to be leaving Moritz with some of the most meaningful friendships I could have ever hoped to form. Thinking back to those fears, it seems silly to really even recall a time where I was anxious about those relationships and how they would form. I will be honored to share the stage today with some of the finest men and women I have ever met. Even Tim Kelly. But in addition to relationships, I know I speak for all of us when I say, I remember having profound fears about classes. Will I get good grades? When professors, when they call on me, will I know the answers? Well, as it turns out, not all fears are so unreasonable. Honestly, I don't know if there's a worse feeling than having perfectly effective internet surfing interrupted by a professor's question. Faculty, I'm sorry, but unless you're asking me for 26 across in this morning's lantern, sorry I couldn't have been more helpful. And Dean Michaels, if you're looking for new faculty next time, if perhaps you're looking for someone to discuss the legal implications of solitaire, I can get you Mark Hilton's updated contact information. But all of us, we all came in nervous about grades and nervous about cold calling, and we all humiliated ourselves at least once, some of us more than once. And by my rough calculations, 90% of us are not in the top 10% of the class. Actually, I think Joe Sachs by himself is the top 5%. Nonetheless, in light of those fears, we've persevered, whether on wall journal, or PILF, or SBA, or moot court, we've all found our niche. Even when our worst fears manifested themselves, we achieved. Which brings me back to today. I, along with, as Professor Merritt mentioned, along with many of my classmates, confront a difficult economy, many of us who don't have jobs. Indeed, the only thing lower than my GPA, I think, is the 2010 US GDP. Jobs are at a premium, and we're looking, and it's scary. But as each of us confront life's unknown next step, remember fondly that largely unknown path before us just 3 years ago. Because in one way or another, we were all afraid. And sometimes those apprehensions were quickly allayed. Other times, they were awful. But we survived. Some of us survived Professor Wilson's Socratizing, others Professor Osterly's proselytizing. Impressively, Alfred Chicani survived 3 years across the street from Eddie's. But like law school, going forward, some of those fears will prove inane, others will consistently challenge us. The real world is sink or swim. But classmates, today we know we are all swimmers. Thank you.